What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the DFS OGs podcast right here on Rotogrinders.com, talking everything week 9, cruising right along here with the season, joined as always by my fellow OGs, head chopper, Notorious Noto. Let's go over to you, buddy. How was week 8? How was Halloween? And how we doing it, gentlemen?
Yeah, Halloween was good. Ended up doing a little trick-or-treating. It was kind of cool seeing all the different ways that people were handing out candy, seeing some chutes built where they just sit on the porch and have a little slide for the candy and all that good stuff. But, week 8, one of the stranger slates I can remember with all of the weather news. I think I rebuilt my main lineup on Sunday morning at least 30, 40 times. Didn't get a lot right, but I did have Dalvin Cook. So that's really all I needed in order to cash. So ended up being a good week for me, but I did get a lot wrong as well.
Yeah, monster day by Cook, and he's back here on this slate in another good spot, so we will definitely be talking some Dalvin Cook. Chop, let's get over to you, buddy. A, how was week 8? And B, I'd be remiss, and I wouldn't be doing the listeners any favors here. I know how much you love Halloween. We've talked about it over the years, one of your favorite holidays. Of course, I'm kidding. So how the hell was Halloween? How was week 8, and how we doing?
Well, week 8 was pretty terrible. It was probably the worst week I've had so far. I just couldn't get anything right in the morning time on Sunday morning. So, yeah, I didn't have a good week at all. But, Halloween is what it is, man. It's good for the kiddos. But, again, if you're an adult walking around dressed up, it's too much, man. But we just threw some candy downstairs, put a little police tape up by the stairs so that nobody would walk up the stairs. Keep them all downstairs and just grab and get you one, and please don't take more than one and be on your way, man. But please don't ring my doorbell tonight.
Right, the old take one. How'd that go? Because normally it's first kid gets there, they're doing the whole arm drag and they're taking everything. So did the take one last throughout the day, the night? The
take one lasted because my kids were up on the porch eyeballing everything, so you couldn't. The people down there couldn't be greedy and grab a bunch. They had eyeballs on them, so it kept everybody in line pretty good.
So here we had a little bit of an issue, not at my house personally, but my wife is on all these neighborhood app things, and somebody had the gall, and I'm going to call her Karen, to post a video of a kid on her doorbell who did the old take one, and he took all the candy. She called him out publicly on this next door neighbor app, his picture right there. Whose kid is this that took all the candy? Back in our day, that if you were the first kid there, that you scored all the candy. That's the way it was. Nowadays, you can't get away with anything. So a shame for that kid, but we move on. Let's talk some football here. Talking some week 9. As always, we focus on the main slate. 11 games here on the main slate. Plenty of injuries. News that we'll walk through. Our favorite betting picks on each game as well. Noto, you are no longer allowed to abstain from the bets, according to Mike Lynn, who does the tracking of the bets. So forcing the picks, and we're going to try to force that record. But we'll take a look at our records here in a little bit. We'll get an update on Chop's season-long team. I know you guys are always waiting on that. Each and every week. But guys, let's dive into the games here. Looks like a pretty fun slate of games. COVID news, we'll see. Green Bay is on Thursday night. That game looks like it could be a mess. Other than that, we did get news on a quarterback we'll talk about going on the COVID list here later on in the games. But 8 early games, 3 late games. Let's start with Carolina and Kansas City. Kansas City, big home favorites here, as we'd expect. So the big news on Carolina's side, Christian McCaffrey expected back. So how much interest do you guys have there? Only 8,500 on DraftKings. Kansas City side of things, Sammy Watkins remains questionable. So, Chop, we'll start with you here. KC continued to roll at home against the Jets. Obviously was hoping for that Le'Veon Bell narrative. We didn't get any of that. And I guess that leads me to running backs in general here for the Chiefs. How are you feeling about these guys? Because we really haven't seen either of them do a whole lot since Le'Veon Bell showed up in town here. So a home matchup, big favorite, interest level there in the running backs, and then the McCaffrey question, yes or no at 8,500?
Well, I would say, man, if it was just about there's about 3 or 4 teams in this league that the Chiefs could be playing that would make me keep Edwards-Helaire in the player pool this week, and the Panthers just happen to be one of them. Anybody else, and I'm probably dumping all the running backs and not even worrying about them. But this is just enough of a matchup at home to pique my interest a little bit in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But there's not going to be very many times going forward that I'm going to play him. But yeah, I can go with that guy. I could go with I think Mahomes, Tyreek, and Kelsey are in play again. I'm not chasing the Hardman or Robinson. I know that Hardman had a good game last time out. The week before that was Robinson, but I wouldn't be playing Sammy Watkins here, so I'm not going to play any of his backups there either. Yeah, pardon me, I'm choking a little here because my house is a little smoky right now. I wasn't doing the Empire Maker, steak of fish. I wasn't doing his thing, but my boy, he thinks he's some kind of chef now, so all he does is try to cook these foods. And this idiot put his tortilla on the stove and then went upstairs to play a game real fast and forgot about the tortilla, and now everything's smoky and I'm about choking in here, man. The air quality is terrible. But Panthers, I don't mind going back to Christian, but you know what? At this price tag, we're also going to have to see how much Mike Davis has carved out a role for himself. So I'm a little worried about that. And then you could always play DJ Moore, and Robbie Anderson, especially Anderson. I think Anderson's fine. So it is what it is. I expect points. I think a lot of people are in play here.
All right, Chop, you need to go 10 to the fire there. We don't want any burnt quesadillas. That's for damn sure. We don't want to burn down the
I've already got on his ass. I already got on his ass before the show. He knows, but like I can't do nothing about it now, but I air the plays out. And we're stuck now in this big smoky house.
So my daughter does the same. My oldest daughter's 12, and she enjoys cooking, and that's fine. But what the hell's with kids and putting shit on the stove or in the oven and leaving? Like they just leave the kitchen completely and rely on timers and Alexas. And when you're in the kitchen, you gotta stay there and keep things moving so you're not burning down the house. So same boat. I've had some smoky houses here, Chop. None today, but I know the feeling. Derek, your kid's not quite of age yet. Let's hope he's not cooking just yet. But back to the football here. What do you got, Panthers and Chiefs?
Yeah, my little one's still working on that little toy kitchen of his, but I'm not going to lie. I've burned quite a few frozen pizzas while watching some football over the last few years. So I get it. As far as this game, yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll be playing Christian McCaffrey, even if they say he's not going to be limited. Head coach Matt Rule said Mike Davis has earned himself some snaps. So whether that's, lined up as a receiver or whether they're going to spell McCaffrey a little bit, we don't know. Just have to wait and see. The best way to beat KC is definitely on the ground. But if you're down 2 scores in the first quarter, it's kind of hard to rely on that run game. So kind of with Chop, I like DJ Moore a little bit. He is only 5,600. He's been seeing shorter routes over the last 3 weeks. The first 4 or 5, it was Robbie Anderson seeing the shorter routes with DJ Moore being more of the deep threat. But that's kind of flipped back to Moore being the underneath guy. So he's my preferred option for Carolina. And then on Kansas City, just kind of tough. I mean, Le'Veon Bell and CEH both had 9 touches last week, but CEH did have twice as many snaps. So he's probably my preferred option in the backfield. But running back's always so deep that don't really want to target a guy that I don't feel great about. You can always play Mahomes, Tyreek, Kelsey every single week, and that's not going to change here. And even though, DeMarcus Robinson, McCole Hardman, like Chop mentioned, we wouldn't play Sammy Watkins in this spot, but Robinson's only 3,200, so he can at least be added to your MME player pool.
I'm pretty much with you guys here. I think it's Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey, obviously. I think that's in play every week. I don't mind going back to Clyde Edwards-Helaire here. I could see them using the ground game a little bit more here. He's only 6,100. Maybe you pair him up with the Chiefs defense. And then Carolina, I agree. DJ Moore, even though we saw Curtis Samuel get a little bit more involved, did play some running back. I'm not a big believer in Curtis Samuel and Christian McCaffrey. I just don't see why they would bring him back and give him 30 touches here. I mean, they're 3-5. It's not like they're in the playoff chase. I guess if they expand the playoffs like they're talking, maybe they are. But I just don't see it making any sense for them to give him a full workload. And I could see people, seeing that $8,500 price point and being super excited about it. So I think I'll stay away from that one as well. All right, Noto, Kansas City -10.5, total sitting at 53.
I'll take KC here at home.
I will also take the Chiefs here. Carolina have been competitive in a lot of these games, but this is a different animal going into Kansas City facing this offense. So a lot of points, but I'll take the Chiefs. Chop, what do you got?
I'll take the over here.
Taking the over. All right, week 8. Not great. Noto,
Come on, man.
Noto, you were 500, 5-5.
Okay.
So you were the best of the group. That's the bad news. 53, 37, and 1 on the season. So still pretty good record there. Chop 4-7, buddy. So you put up a beer week there. Takes you to 46 and 44. And I was 5-6 last week, 40, 49 and 1. So we had 2 that we agreed on last week. We went 1-1 on those, and 1 took an overtime to beat us the under in that Saints Chiefs game or Saints Chicago game. So not a great week. So hopefully we turn the page here and get back on track as far as the bets go. So next game, Seattle goes to Buffalo. Seattle small favorites here, big total at 54. And this one, it's going to be tough to break down the Seattle side as far as the running backs go. We just don't know. Is Carson coming back? Is Hyde back? Is DJ Dallas going to be the guy again? So that's kind of a question we can't answer. But we can look at the receivers here. We got DK Metcalf coming off the big game. Tyler Lockett. There's now a $1,000 difference between the two on DraftKings. So kind of parse through those guys. And in the Buffalo side of things, I think the big question, the running backs. We saw Moss and Singletary kind of split the work pretty evenly as far as carries go. We did see Moss score a couple touchdowns here. So Noto, Josh Allen, not been great here over the past couple of weeks. Is this the kind of matchup where he gets back on track, maybe at lower ownership? The Buffalo running backs, the Seattle receivers, lots of questions here for you. What do you got, Seattle and Buffalo?
Yeah, one of the more stackable games of the week. You can play Russell Wilson pretty much in any matchup at this point, and the Bills defense hasn't been as good as they're given credit for. Russell Wilson averaging 32 fantasy points per game. The question is who to pair him up with. It seems like Lockett and Metcalf just go back and forth each week on who is going to have the bigger game. And, just given the matchup and given the $1,000 discount, it's hard not to like Lockett. Kind of expecting Tre'Davious White to shadow DK Metcalf. Doesn't mean that Metcalf can't beat him in one-on-one coverage, but Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson, they may not choose to attack Tre'Davious White and just take the easier matchup that Lockett's going to have. So he's going to be the guy that I would look to. And then, as you mentioned, the backfield, just take a wait-and-see approach there. If it's just one guy that's going to be active and everyone else is out, then he's going to be in a smash spot once again. DJ Dallas had that big game, and he was only like 3% owned in the main slate last week just because we didn't know who was going to be back there. For Buffalo, it's a really good spot playing at home. Seattle, dead last in fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks, dead last in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. So give me all the Josh Allen here. I know he's struggled over the last 4 games, but it's a really good bounce back spot. Pair him up with Stephon Diggs, and if you're looking for a lower owned stack, you can include Beasley or John Brown. And then, the backfield, Singletary was out-snapped by Zach Moss for the first time this season. Moss did get those 2 touchdowns, so he's the guy I would prefer, but for now, I will continue to avoid that timeshare.
Do you think we get any low ownership on Josh Allen? We know the DFS audience has gotten smarter. A few years ago, they would have looked at the game logs and said, hey, he's been terrible. I don't want to play him. We know it's just not that way these days. So this being a 54 total with everyone constantly wanting to attack Seattle games, do we potentially get low ownership here on Josh Allen, or are those days behind us, Noto?
In order for him to be really low owned, he'd have to project poorly, and I just don't see that happening. Projection systems take into account more than just the last 4 weeks. So I don't think so, but the good news is quarterbacks never really get that chalky to begin with. So even if he's, 15%, I'm still liking Josh Allen.
All right, Chop, same questions for you. Josh Allen, Moss Singletary debate, the Lockett Metcalf debate, a lot to break down here. What do you got, Seattle and Buffalo?
Yeah, no, we won't get any low ownership on Josh Allen just because of the past couple of games. That's just like you said, it's just not the way that DFS is these days. There's too many outlets out there that people follow and keeps them too up to date with this stuff. So no, we're not going to get any discounted ownership on him, unfortunately. But as far as the rest of that thing, I'm with Notorious. I can avoid, these guys split that backfield 50-50 right down the middle last week. I don't want any part of that. Allen to Diggs is fine. You can sprinkle in a John Brown or a Cole Beasley if you want to. It should be a good matchup for him. And by the way, the matchup with Seattle, as good as it is, was absolutely 100% my downfall last week with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's why I had a terrible week, man. DFS 4-7 on the picks. I lost my season long.
Oh no,
Lost my season long, man. Just terrible. Everything was terrible last week.
And
so,
your house almost burnt down. On
yeah,
top
house
of
almost
it,
burned out today, man. But like, whew, Jimmy G, man. Whatever. Let's just move on from that one. It's a good matchup though for Allen, and I think he'll get there. Weather dependent. And so on the Seattle side, yeah, man, it's pretty obvious to me right now just how much of the alpha DK Metcalf is. Not just because he's coming off of a great game, but he's only had one game this year where he didn't get at least 90 yards receiving. And Tyler Lockett's had two big games this year. That one against Arizona on, I think it was Monday night. And he had that big one against Dallas where he caught 3 touchdowns in the first half. Even in that game, DK Metcalf put up 110 yards. So Metcalf is there almost every week, all except for 1 week. So DK's the guy, man. That's the guy I'm going with. I'm rolling with for the most part moving forward. And I think he's in for another good week this week because he's indefensible, basically. And if you're going to try to put one guy, as good as that one guy might be this week, if you try to put one guy on him, he's just too physical. He's just too good. So don't mind DK. Russell, I guess the backfield is probably a stay away from me unless we hear Carson's 100%. I don't even want to hear that Carson's going to play. I need Carson to be 100% healthy before I want to run him out there because he's too fragile otherwise.
All right, let's pretend Carson and Hyde are out. Interest level in DJ Dallas, who looked good, had the majority of the work last week. We'll see if Homer factors in more, but where would your interest level lie there if we don't have Carson or Hyde, Chop?
Pretty high for the fact that it's a fair price tag. It's not super discounted this week. It's in the 5K range on both sides. Really good on FanDuel. Fair on DraftKings, but the guy got targeted 5 times and caught 5 passes, and against Buffalo, that seems like something that Russell would have to do quite a bit of, is check down a little bit to his running back. So I'd have a lot of interest in DJ Dallas.
No, same question to you.
Yeah, if those guys are out, definitely interest in DJ Dallas. They were using him a lot in the passing game too, even around the goal line. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I'm with you guys as well. The price went up a little bit, but if you're getting a guy that's going to handle the majority of the work at 5K, tough to say no to that. All right, Chop, we have Seattle road favorites here, -3, big 54-point total.
Buffalo.
Derek.
Man, I don't know, man. Buffalo needs a big win. Their 6 wins have all come against pretty bad teams. They lost to the Titans and the Chiefs, only 2 good teams that they faced. So give me Seattle.
I'm going to take Seattle here as well. I just debate at the end of the game, what quarterback do I want the ball in their hands? And to me, it's easy. It's Russell Wilson. So I don't usually like to take road favorites. I like them home dogs, Chop, but I'm going to go with Seattle here with Derek -3. All right, next game. Denver travels to Atlanta to take on the Falcons here. Denver side of things, coming off that crazy win against the Chargers. I mean, they were dead and buried. You got to give him credit. Drew Lock put up most of his numbers in that second half, but they end up taking that game by 1. Tim Patrick, the only name of note, questionable here. Atlanta side of things, big win at Carolina. Calvin Ridley, questionable. We saw him leave that game last week, which led to Julio Jones going over 135 yards in that game. So, Chop, this one goes to you, buddy. Both teams coming off wins. Denver, it was ugly, but they got it done. This Atlanta offense, who we favor in there. Your thoughts, Broncos, Falcons.
Whew. It sounds like it's a good game. It sounds like it's a good game on paper, but for Denver, I mean, Drew Lock feels like he might be okay in this game, but I don't particularly see a wide receiver I really want to pair him with. I don't believe Jerry Jeudy is there yet, so I'm not stoked about him. Noah Fant, I don't think he's fully recovered from his injury, and he's losing a little bit. It's just a little bit of work, but he's losing a little bit of work to Albert O, and enough to cost him a touchdown last week when Albert O got the tight end touchdown. So, tough to figure out a Drew Lock who you really feel comfortable pairing him with, even in tournaments or cash or whatever. But it feels like he should get something. I don't like the backfield. Don't want Gordon or Lindsey. As long as they're both healthy, I'm out on that. Atlanta will not go to Todd Gurley this week. Not the matchup for it. Matt Ryan is okay. So then it becomes Julio or Ridley or both. Tough one, man. I guess I lean towards Julio, but I don't know. It's just it feels like the game should have a lot more people that pop off when you see the names Denver against Atlanta and a 50-point spread, but people just aren't popping off the page to me.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat here, and this could very well turn out to be. There's always a game or two every week that kind of goes overlooked. And I mean, we have a higher total game in that Seattle game we talked about. We got a few more that are over 50. So maybe this one kind of falls down the list a little bit. Derek, any more enthusiasm here? I mean, Julio to me, always a guy you can play. We'll see what the status of Ridley is, but I'm kind of with Chop. I don't really want to play any of the running backs here. Denver have been pretty good against the run. Atlanta, surprisingly, top 10 against the run here. So I'm in the same boat. What are your thoughts here, Broncos, Falcons?
I have a little more optimism than you guys, at least on the Broncos side. They faced two bad defenses this season. They put up 37 against the Jets, and then they put up 31 against the Chargers last week. They've had a lot of tough matchups. They had a snow game against KC. And you mentioned it, Atlanta, they've been a pass funnel defense, 29th in DVOA against the pass, 8th in DVOA against the run. I think it's a great spot for Drew Lock. He's only 5,200. The question is who to pair him up with. I do agree with you guys on that. Jerry Jeudy hasn't been great. Tim Patrick has been their wide receiver one. So if he's back in the mix, he's under 5K, at least interesting. And Noah Fant, I like him as well. 9 targets last week. And Falcons just can't cover anyone when it comes to the pass. So I have a little bit more interest in Denver's side of things. But for Atlanta, yeah, it's kind of tough. I know they're playing at home. Denver's got a pretty good defense. Maybe Hayden Hurst at 4,100 or, Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. They're kind of similar to Lockett and Metcalf, and one of them's probably going to go off, and the other one's probably going to struggle a little bit. So I'll have more than you guys, but maybe not as much as I was expecting heading into the week.
All right, Derek, Atlanta -4 here at home. The total sitting at 50.
Oh, this one's tough. I'll take Denver. Coming off that big win, maybe they get some momentum going.
I'm going to go over here. You mentioned the numbers with Denver. I do think Atlanta will put some points on the board. So as much as I didn't love this game for DFS, I do think there will be points. I'm going to go over that 50. Chop, what do you got?
I am also taking the over. I can't pinpoint the DFS guys I want, but I for sure feels like a good offensive matchup. So I'll take the over.
All right, so going from an offensive matchup to a defensive matchup, we got Baltimore and Indy here, our next game up. Baltimore, tough loss against Pittsburgh, just a back-and-forth game. Indy goes into Detroit and handles the Lions pretty easily. So running backs really the story here, guys. Ingram, we know, is questionable once again. We saw J.K. Dobbins go over 100 yards. We saw Gus Edwards find the end zone, 15 carries for Dobbins, 16 for Edwards. And then the Indy side of things, Jonathan Taylor didn't look great. Here comes Jordan Wilkins, and looks like we thought Taylor should have looked in this matchup. So Taylor is questionable here. T.Y. is questionable. Wilkins down to 4.2K, interest level there. And then what do we do with Lamar Jackson, guys? I mean, it's week in, week out, same story. We know the level of upside. His price down to 6,900 here. Can you play him in this matchup? Noto, we'll go to you here. Running back questions. Lamar questions, your thoughts, Ravens, Colts.
Start with the Indy side. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's getting the Trent Richardson comp already. I don't know if that's too fair. I don't know if that's fair. He was apparently dealing with an ankle injury, but I mean, there are 2 other backs that are going to, get a lot of work in this offense. So I don't know if you can go there. But one thing to keep in mind, we just noted that Marlon Humphrey's on the COVID-19 list, and it sounds like they're going to add 7 more players to the list on Tuesday afternoon. So if those are starters on the defensive end, that would certainly be a boost for the Colts offense as a whole. I'm not sure who I would still look to because I don't really like to trust anyone in this offense, but just a situation to monitor. And then on Baltimore side, yeah, I'm fine going back to Lamar Jackson. I know Indy's got a really good defense, but he's always capable of rushing for 100 yards. He gets to play indoors. So I don't mind going to Lamar. You have the squeaky wheel with Marquise Brown, who's kind of calling out his coaching staff after the game last week. Mark Andrews only 4,800, so that's at least interesting. I think you just buy low on the Ravens and, kind of expect them to get things worked out a little bit.
All right, Chop, let's get over to you here. Same questions. The running backs on both sides, and more importantly, where are you at with Lamar Jackson under 7K here against Indy?
Yeah, I don't mind Lamar Jackson because quarterbacks who can run, there's really not much of a defensive game plan you can install in 1 week to shut them down. So if the defense is tough, then he'll run. I like that aspect of it. Now it's the running backs that are getting me, because when I saw Dobbins last week against Pittsburgh, I was like, yo, if Mark Ingram was going to be out, this is the guy we got to play. And then you come to this matchup, which really isn't particularly good at all. I mean, the Colts have been really good against running backs. I don't think running backs topped like 65, 70 yards on them all year. I think Kareem Hunt got to 70 yards or something on like 20 carries. My numbers may be off, but I'm seeing like 8 yards rushing between Swift, Kerryon Johnson, and Adrian Peterson last week against his defense. So his defense is pretty good against running backs. And Baltimore lost Ronnie Stanley for sure. We don't know if one of those other COVID guys is going to be on the offensive line. So who knows, man? I don't know about the running backs, but I'm with Derek on the squeaky wheel, Marquise Brown. I think he can be a guy that beats this defense. They've given up some pretty good games here. Marvin Hall busted 100 yards on him last week on some deep passes. T. Higgins 100 yards the week before that. So I think maybe Marquise Brown is the place I want to go there. And for the Colts, I don't know, man. It would take like 7 or 8 defensive starters to be out for me to want to play anybody on this team right now. I just don't think they're particularly good on offense. I know, the running backs got there last week, luckily, but I don't want to trust that week in, week out. So I'm out on the Colts offense.
And we've kind of seen this from Wilkins before. He kind of surfaces. He'll have a good game. I mean, definitely look good, no doubt. But with 3 of those guys, I mean, if Taylor is out, I think it becomes a lot easier. And then maybe Hines becomes a lot more interesting as well if everyone's going to be on Wilkins. But if all 3 are healthy, you just never know how they're gonna play this out. Maybe it was a game plan thing against Detroit. Maybe Taylor's ankle was bothering that week, and maybe it's not this week. I mean, there's just so many questions and ways this could go. And you're playing Baltimore. If it was a better matchup, I'd be more apt to take some shots here. But as of now, I'm going to stay away from both sides of the running game. I think you guys nailed it. And Lamar, certainly intriguing. I agree on Hollywood. And then Andrews' call as well. He's too cheap, and we know the level of upside he brings to the table. So, Chop, we have Ravens -3 here on the road. The total, very small total, 44.5.
It's a small total, but I'm still taking the under here.
I'm with you. Under for me as well. 2 very good defensive teams. I think it'll be a struggle to score points here. So it's a low total. We want to shoot for overs generally here, but I'm going under as well. Derek, what do you got?
I'm taking the over. I think, Humphrey's probably hanging out with the guys on the defensive side of the ball. So if 7 of his close contacts are going to be added to the list, and they're not going to be able to practice all week, probably going to be missing the game as well. I think that will help the Colts offense. And I think the Ravens offense is just going to get going here.
All right, next game, we get back to the 50-point totals here. Houston and Jacksonville, both teams coming off a bye. Houston, no major injuries, obviously. Jacksonville side, Gardner Minshew out and Jake Luton in. So, Chop, we're going to go to you on this one. We'll get to Derek. I know these are our 2 teams you guys know very well. Chop, you're our resident college football expert, so give us the breakdown on Jake Luton, who was a 6th-round pick out of Oregon State, I believe. He's only 4.9K here in this matchup. So thoughts there and the rest of the game, Texans and Jags.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't anything special or particularly good in college, in my opinion. So I don't know how much I'm expecting this week. It's a good price tag. So some of the things that are benefiting him, it's a good price tag. He's got good receivers. He's had, I would assume plenty of time now with the bye week to kind of incorporate himself into the offense and to have something scripted out for him a little bit. So he's got some things working for him, but yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just not – and it's a good matchup too. But I'm not going to pin my hopes on Jake Luton, though. But James Robinson looked really good last time we saw him, and I think he's going to get the bell cow work this week, so I'll go there. Maybe the quarterback change helps DJ Shark. He's the guy he's been one of the bigger disappointments this year for me. So maybe this quarterback change kind of reinvigorates him. So I'll take some shots on DJ Shark. And then on the Houston side, a bye week to rest up, heal up, got a good matchup. So fire up Deshaun, fire up Will Fuller. I'm on those 2 guys hard and heavy.
Yeah, as we're recording, it is the trade deadline today. So a lot of rumors floating around actually about Will Fuller Maybe ended up in Green Bay. So just keep,
Ooh,
we'll have to keep an eye on that one.
I
Maybe
bet
there's some,
you're waiting on that one, ain't you?
a little excitement under the desk here. If Will Fuller were to arrive in town. So yeah,
What if I told you Will Fuller for your next 2 second-round picks?
oh, that's a big price to pay. Of course, the way Green Bay drafts. I mean, if we're going to draft backup running backs and quarterbacks of the future, I don't mind shipping those picks off. So that seems a bit high. I think I'd pass on. Maybe we go get AJ Green for like a 6th-rounder. That's another name I hear floating out. But I kind of agree with you here, Chop. I don't know how much Luton I want here. I mean, I love the price tag. Clearly a matchup that you can expose with Houston. Robinson at 7K. I mean, the guy's handling a bigger workload than what Christian McCaffrey handled last year. So in a good matchup, he's in play as well. Maybe they lean on him even more here, which I didn't know was possible. But maybe they want to take the ball out of Luton's hands. And then Houston, we'll see if they do make any trades. If not, I agree with you. I think it's a great spot against Jacksonville to load up on Watson, Fuller, all these guys perfectly healthy. Cooks has looked better over the last few weeks. So a very stackable game. Derek, this is your squad here. So what do you got? Texans and Jags.
It's funny. Like, the more I play DFS and bet on football, the less I really care about my team. And with them being so bad, I don't know the Jaguars nearly as well as I do 20 other teams in the NFL because I'm never playing anyone from them. But, yeah, I'm probably not going to be on Luton. I know he's cheap. I know it's a good matchup playing at home. But rookie quarterbacks making their first start, certainly not a sure thing. DJ Chark is cheap, like Chop mentioned. He might get the Bradley Roby treatment. He did struggle in this matchup in week 4 or 5 when they squared off. So maybe it opens up something for one of the other receivers. But I think you guys hit the nail on the head. James Robinson's the play here. And the fact that he's 7K, it just keeps his ownership low every single week. He's getting a bunch of work. He has the best run potential when you look at the offensive adjusted line yards compared to the defensive adjusted line yards for the Texans. So love the spot for James Robinson. And then in the 3 games since they fired Bill O'Brien, Deshaun Watson has 30, 35, and 27 fantasy points. You can beat Jacksonville through the air or on the ground. So love Watson. Pair him up with Cooks or Fuller if he doesn't get traded. And nobody's going to play David Johnson, but he does get the workload. So maybe he can finally get a couple touchdowns to pay off that price point.
David Johnson, man, we just got to quit that guy. But, if you can't get it done against Jacksonville, I think that's the point where we can write him off. But the point is valid. He does get a lot of work. I wish they'd get him more involved in the passing game. So maybe this is the week. Maybe coming off the bye week, they had more time to get things put in place. So could be a lower-owned guy that pays off here. All right, Derek, we have Houston -6.5, 51.5 on the total.
I like this game from a DFS perspective, but I'm going to take the under just because the Jags have a rookie quarterback.
I'm going over. These defenses both suck. Houston might score in the 30s on their own, so I only need a few touchdowns out of that Jags offense. I'm going over 51.5. Chop.
Oh, man. Yeah, give me the over also here.
All right, moving on. Detroit and Minnesota, an NFC North battle. We mentioned the Lions, tough loss to Indy at home. Minnesota goes to Lambeau Field and gets it done on the back of Dalvin Cook. Massive day there for the Vikings, 4 touchdowns. Now a great spot here at home against the Lions. So how high is Dalvin Cook in your ranks? How high do we expect the ownership to be here? Noto, and then the Detroit side of things. Kenny Galladay looking doubtful, likely going to miss a few weeks. So is it Marvin Jones time? Is it Marvin Hall, who we saw score a long touchdown? Maybe Hawkinson takes on more. I kind of like DeAndre Swift to bounce back here as well. So Lions, Vikings, Noto, what do you got?
Hate going to guys coming off of a huge game, but it's hard not to like Dalvin Cook here. Playing at home, great matchup. Lions 21st in DVOA against the run. One of the worst in terms of fantasy points allowed to running backs. Minnesota's offensive line is like number 4 in adjusted line yards so far this season. And he played on 88% of the snaps last week. That was a season high. So it's hard not to like Dalvin Cook. And I just don't know the Vikings are going to need to air it out. Kirk Cousins only threw it 14 times last week because they were just having so much success on the ground, and that could easily be the case again this week. The leverage is probably going to be Thielen and Jefferson if you don't want to play Dalvin Cook, but I think I like Dalvin Cook over those two. The Detroit side, I'll just wait and see what the ownership looks like on these wide receivers whoever ends up being the chalk, I'll probably be underweight on and then be overweight on the other two, Marvin Jones, Marvin Hall, Danny Amendola, and then TJ Hawkinson as well. They're all in pretty good spots. So whoever is the chalk's probably going to be the worst of the bunch, just because Stafford tends to, spread the ball around quite a bit in this offense. And I like the Swift bounce back call. He did play a season high 62% of the snaps last week. Didn't do much with it, but that was his season high in terms of snap share.
Yeah, my guess is you're going to see a lot of ownership on Marvin Jones and then Dalvin Cook on the other side, obviously. I think those are going to be the two chalky players. So I think that makes Jones, I don't say an easy avoid. We know he's going to get volume, but we've seen him many a times in these spots, and he's disappointed in a lot of them. I'm with you, though. Dalvin Cook, I'm having a hard time not playing him. I know there'll be leverage, and I'm interested in the passing game, but the dude's got touchdowns in every single game this season. I mean, the lowest fantasy output's been 17 on DraftKings, and that was against Indy. Other than that, you can pretty much book him from 20 to 50 fantasy points. So, Chop, your outlook here for Dalvin Cook, we know he's in a good spot. Are you worried about the ownership? And then the Detroit side, what receiver are you interested in? Any interest in DeAndre Swift here as well?
Very interested in Dalvin Cook. Not really worried about the ownership right now. We'll see what it looks like closer to kickoff, but I think Dalvin Cook's in a good spot. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try to split hairs in this game. Minnesota's at home, so you can get back on Cousins. He's indoors. So Cousins, Cook, Thielen, Jefferson. I don't know between Thielen and Jefferson which one's going to blast off, but I would assume one of them is going to have a good game. Now on the flip side, Detroit. Now, boy, I know Dre Swift played more snaps last week, but it's still hard to trust a guy who's single-digit carries every week except for 1 week where he got 14 carries. That's a tough one. And then if Marvin Jones looks like he's going to be chalky, I can definitely avoid that thing, man. He's been pretty much outworked by even Danny Amendola like 4 or 5 times this year. So Marvin Jones, maybe he's hit that wall with his athleticism and in his career. Maybe it's just not there anymore. But he just doesn't look good, man. Even in the spots where Kenny Galladay missed earlier in the year, he didn't look good at all. So maybe it's Marvin Hall's time to shine here, man. I don't know. Beer, you could be on mute, Beer.
No mute here. I'm just getting my thoughts together here. But let's not forget about Hawkinson. I mean, I think he could be the one. Maybe people are going to target these receivers, just knowing Galladay's out. He did see 10 targets. We really haven't seen a ceiling game out of him, but the floor has certainly been there, been productive each and every week. So he could be a guy to take a look at here as a run back option or even a tight end. The position's always tough. So 5,100 is no gimme price. Maybe that keeps people away, but I have interest there as well. All right, we got Minnesota -4 here, Chop, total at 52.5.
Oh, yes, that's a good spread. It's a good spread. Can't figure it out, so I'm just going to take the over because I distrust both these defenses so much. I'm going to take the over.
I'm going to take Detroit and the points here. I think this could be a close game, so give me the Lions plus the 4. Derek, what do you got?
Man, we're all over the map today. I'll take the Vikings at home.
All right, moving on to maybe the ugliest game maybe of the season here. Giants and Washington. I mean, we're talking about a 41-point total in 2020. So in previous years, this baby's probably in the mid-30s, one of those 36.5, 37-point totals. But injury-wise, Giants, Devontae Freeman questionable. We'll see if he returns to the lineup. Nothing of note on the Washington side coming off the bye. So, Chop, we're going to go to you here. Giants receivers. We saw him play Tampa Bay Monday night. We saw the targets pretty much go to 3 guys, Ingram, Slayton, and Shepard, 10, 10, and 9 on those targets. Washington side, how interested are we in Antonio Gibson here? Looked great in that game before the bye. They're home favorites. I know it's a low total, but he's only 5,800. McLaurin, they finally jacked the price up to close to what it should be at 65. So Gibson, McLaurin, interest level there, and then any interest here in the Giants on the road?
Oh, boy. The Giants on the road, that's a tough sell for me right there because they're just not particularly good. And the Washington defense is good. I'll give you a what I think is a fair bet right now. if you can get some good odds on it, is Washington to win this division. Because if the Eagles keep on suffering these offensive line injuries and it's making Carson Wentz look really bad, Washington has such a sneaky good defense that I think they can actually win this division. If they beat Philadelphia, I think they play them one more time. I think they beat them once and they play them one more time. If they beat them again, they're going to win the division, I think. So I like the Washington to win the division. But as far as this game, that defense being so good takes me off of the Giants play. I don't want the Giants guys. Daniel Jones sucks, man. He's not good. And we're recording this thing on Tuesday. We just watched him on Monday Night Football last week. He hit Golden Tate in the back of the end zone to close out the game to make it 25-23 or something like that. They ended up losing. That touchdown cost me the Bucks, my Bucks, and my under bet because I had the Bucks live at -2.5. So Daniel Jones really screwed me on that one, and then he still didn't get the 2-point conversion, so I didn't even get a chance to win it back in overtime. But don't like Daniel Jones, don't like the New York Giants offense. Washington offense not much better with Kyle Allen, but yes, Gibson, like you said, I think he's going to be the bell cow moving forward. So I like Gibson, and McLaren's a week in and week out wide receiver one. So you play that too. But everybody else in this game is a no-go for me, except for the Washington defense.
Yeah, I like that, paired with Gibson. Now you said it last week, Chop, Monday Night Football. I just want to get clarification here. Is it last week? Is it the start of this week? Like, where does this game land, man?
Monday Night Football ends the previous week, and Tuesday starts afresh the new week.
How does one argue that? I just don't get that. Like, it's the last game of the week. That's it. We move on. Tuesday, we start looking forward. So I'm with you here. I like Gibson. I like him paired with the Washington defense. I also like McLaurin here. The Giants 28th DVOA against the pass. The Giants side, I'm out. I just don't see anything worth even playing here. So, Derek, any more optimism for the Giants? Anything else that we didn't mention on the Washington side?
I like both defenses in this game. You mentioned Washington. They got a really good front seven, and they are number 2 in adjusted sack rate this season. And then you look at the other side, Washington's offensive line is 31st in adjusted sack rate. So I think the Giants can get some pressure on Washington. We know Kyle Allen commits a lot of turnovers, takes a lot of sacks. So I like both defenses. If I had to choose one guy from each side, Evan Ingram would be the one from the Giants. Washington has struggled a little bit against tight ends. And then Terry McLaurin on the other side. But overall, pretty ugly game.
All right, spread-wise, we have Washington as a favorite. You don't say that very often, but -3 here at home. And I mentioned that total, just 41.
Who we got to first?
Derek,
yeah, I'll take Washington. I kind of like Beer's thoughts of them winning the division.
I will take Washington here as well. I mean, this one's just ugly. Oh, this is where we're going to plant our flag on the damn football team?
Hey,
Top.
A fresh defensive line, one of the better defensive lines in the NFL. Give me Washington.
Is that our first one here?
Yes.
All right, not much of a parlay card yet. We'll see what we can do here. But last game here in the early window, Chicago and Tennessee. Chicago, tough loss at home to the Saints. Tennessee goes to Cincinnati, and I had high hopes for that team. Had a lot of Tannehill and A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry. Henry did all right, but they go to Cincy and take the L there. Really only injury here, Adam Humphries, we saw kind of get blown up in that game, so he will be questionable here. But Chop, we're going to go to Noto. We'll go to you here. The Bears, it's hard for me to play a Chicago Bear these days, even as much as I like Allen Robinson. It's just not a lot of volume. The running game is ugly with Montgomery. So mainly for me, it's the Tennessee side, and this is not a great matchup here. So what do we do with Henry? Do we get a bounce back from Tannehill and Brown? What do you got here, Bears and Titans?
Yeah, for Chicago, it's been ugly. But if you like volume at the running back position, I mean, David Montgomery, 80% of the snaps, at least the last 5 games. He's had at least 5 targets in each of the last 5 games, double-digit fantasy points each of the last 5 games. I know it doesn't look pretty. He's averaging like 2 yards per carry, something ugly like that. But I actually don't hate him here. He is getting the targets, and that does certainly help his floor. He's still under 6K, so he's at least interesting. Robinson, like you mentioned, I mean, he's just had a bad quarterback his entire career. Just think how great he could have been if he had a good quarterback throwing him the ball. He's still fine. He can certainly break 100 yards in any matchup. And then Mooney's been close to having a breakout game. He's still only 3,900. So wouldn't look at any of these guys in single entry or cash games, but maybe in large field tournaments, you can target a few players from the Bears. And Derrick Henry on the other side, strictly an ownership play for me. He's one of those guys that if he's going to be really highly owned, I don't want to play him. But if he's going to be low owned, given the tough matchup against the Bears run defense, I will gladly take my chances with him. He can break off, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns in any matchup. And I also like Jonnu Smith a little bit, up to 81% of the snaps last week, only 3,900. I know he's been quiet each of the last 4 weeks, but I think the playing time is trending upward, and it's a pretty good matchup for him. Bears much tougher on wide receivers than they are on tight ends.
Yeah, well, if Allen Robinson, he goes to Jacksonville, then he goes to Chicago. He could have. Green Bay was interested, and think about it. Allen Robinson paired with Devontae Adams. As you can see, I'm just pining for another receiver here, not named Devontae Adams. But Chop, let's go to you. Noto loves that volume there with David Montgomery in that camp. I'd still say it's tough to even play these guys. And then Titans side, Derrick Henry, yes or no? The passing game, do they bounce back? What do you got here, Chop?
My goodness, if Allen Robinson had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback, he'd be a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, buddy.
He'd be very good. So, this game, there's only 3 guys in this game that I even vaguely have any interest in. Allen Robinson, because I think Tennessee's beatable in the secondary. A.J. Brown, because he's just so high upside when he does get going. And I know it's a tough matchup, but you just got to keep him in the player pool because, for GPPs at least, just because of that upside he does possess, even in the toughest of matchups. Last but not least, the guy who I'll have a ton of this week, and I don't think the ownership is anywhere near it was even last week when it wasn't even that much. Derrick Henry is I think I'm planting my flag for Derrick Henry this week, man. I think this is going to be coming off of losses like this for Tennessee. They're back at home. I think they were 5-0. Now they're 5-2 or something. They're going to try to right the ship here. I think it's going to be through Derrick Henry. And I think the Chicago Bears defense on paper looks tougher than what it really is. I think he's going to mow through them.
All right. You guys didn't bring up Corey Davis, so I know this is not a great matchup, but I have to ask. I mean, we've seen 10 targets each of the last 2 games, double-digit fantasy points in every game he's played this season. Are we believing in Corey Davis finally putting it together, Chop?
No, I'm not. The numbers, I think there's probably something more there that caused those numbers to spike for him. I'm not believing that he's good all of a sudden. I mean, I know he's good, man, because I know he's been good, but something hadn't clicked in his pro career. I don't think it clicked all of a sudden now.
Derek, any thoughts?
Pretty wild. I knew he had a big game last week, but I didn't realize he's been pretty good all year. I'm not going to go there myself at 6K, but he's definitely better than I thought he's been playing. So
yeah, that price is creeping up. I mean, he's closing in on A.J. Brown, so not this week. Just something to store away because he has been pretty consistent, and if he's going to get 10 targets a week, it's something you definitely want to look into. All right, 5.5 here for the Titans. Chop 46.5 on the spread.
Ooh, man, that's a big number. I didn't expect it to be that big, but I think Tennessee pulls away from them at the end, so I'm going to take Tennessee.
I'm going Tennessee here as well. I'm not sold on the Bears. I know the record looks good, but it's just ugly there. So give me the Titans here at home minus the 5.5. Derek, what do you got?
Number 2 on the parlay card. Give me Tennessee.
Right, so what do we got? Washington and Tennessee on the card. We'll see if we can get a little three-way here. Going to the afternoon games, you are listening to the DFS OGs podcast, talking week 9. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. All right, 3 games here in the afternoon. The NFL fails us once again. It's better than 2, I guess, but I wish they could get that spread of the games out a little more, but here we are. We got what we got. So Vegas Chargers leads us off here. Small spread, big total, over 50. Vegas coming off that game in the win, guys. It's almost hard to take anything away from that game. We saw Josh Jacobs carry the ball about 3,000 times, and not much going on in the passing game as expected. The wins were terrible there in Cleveland. The Chargers, we mentioned, tough loss at Denver. But as far as this game, Keelan Allen continues to see a ton of targets. Justin Herbert continues to look good. Very interested in that combo. Justin Jackson has looked good. And then on the Vegas side, I think it's a nice bounce back spot for Darren Waller. Chargers have struggled against tight ends, so that's a guy I have a lot of interest in. So, Chop, we'll go to you here, buddy. Raiders and Chargers.
Yeah, yeah. Darren Waller is definitely the prime guy I would be looking at for Vegas. I'm just not a big Josh Jacobs guy with his offense, so he's okay. He kind of always stays in the player pool because of the volume, but not loving him. Not loving Henry Ruggs as much. Although the Chargers are trading away defensive backs now, so maybe they're just kind of giving up on this whole thing on defense, and maybe they blow some things up. So I guess he's in play. But Darren Waller, yeah, you're right. Darren Waller's that guy over on that side. Loving Justin Herbert. So glad I got him in my season long because the kid looks good and he's young, so they'll play him all year long no matter what. I like that aspect of it. He's got some good targets. Mike Williams looks resurgent. Keenan Allen's getting 10-plus targets a game from him. Love it. Hunter Henry's kind of the odd man out. So until further notice, I'm probably not a huge Hunter Henry guy. But I'll keep pumping Keenan Allen on DraftKings for the PPR and keep pumping Mike Williams on the FanDuel for the big plays. And I'm out on this backfield. But I think there's some offensive fireworks to be had here for sure.
Yeah, agreed. This is a game I'm definitely going to attack, and it's mainly the Herbert-Allen connection, mix in some Williams, and my running back is Waller. I'm with you. I'm not a huge Josh Jacobs guy, so those are the three main targets for me here. A lot of optimism for this game, Derek, from both of us. Agree, disagree? What do you got here?
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. Just a couple of stats. Herbert, 27 fantasy points per game, and potentially they don't let off the gas if they have a lead this week, since they gave up that big lead last week. So I like that. Keenan Allen in his 5 games with Herbert, 10 targets, 19 targets, 11, 13, and 11 targets. So he is just getting peppered. He's getting a lot of high quality targets as well that are short, and he's getting some end zone targets as well. Fine with Mike Williams as well. Hunter Henry, like you mentioned, hasn't shown a ton of upside, but he's cheap, and it's a pretty good matchup. And for the Raiders, it's just hard to trust anyone. Carr's been good, but I don't really like him. Jacobs has been a good running back, hasn't shown a ton of upside. The receivers have been inconsistent, so it's been Darren Waller. And I agree with everything you guys said about him. Pretty good matchup against the Chargers, who are 23rd in fantasy points allowed to the position.
So I think what could help Herbert here on DraftKings, I mean, you look above him. He's 6,800. You have Lamar Jackson, 6,900. A great price there. Josh Allen, who we talked about against Seattle, 7,000. 7,100 on Deshaun Watson. So there's 3 guys I think people are going to want to play. Maybe he falls through the cracks here. I mean, he's been great. People are onto him, but that could be the thing that helps out in the ownership department. So very, very high on Herbert this week here against Vegas. All right, we have Chargers, small favorites here at home, -1.5, 51.5 on that total, Derek.
The Raiders are such a weird team. They have some good wins. They have some bad losses. I like the Chargers here.
Yeah, these are 2 teams that shoot themselves in the foot. I think the Chargers right the ship here. I'm going to go Chargers at home as well. Chop.
I want the over here. I think the Chargers defense is just about tapped out this year, and so I think there's going to be points in this game.
All right, moving on. We got Miami traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Miami, the Tua era begins with a win. Not much to do with Tua. Only 6 DraftKings points there. The defense did the majority of the heavy lifting there in that win against the Rams. Arizona coming off a bye. Kenyon Drake will remain out this week, which means we get Chase Edmonds. Now he's up to 6,800 on DraftKings, Derek. So is that too big of a price? Too cheap? Interest level there? And then what do we do with Miami and Tua? The offense didn't look great. They got the win, but your thoughts here, Dolphins and Cardinals?
My analysis is going to be short and sweet. Miami with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones active, one of the best pass defenses in the NFL so far this season. Dead last in DVOA against the run. So give me all the Chase Edmonds. I like pairing him up with the Cardinals defense against a rookie that's playing his second game on the road. Didn't really get like the reps that he kind of needed in his first NFL start because they were playing with such a big lead. You mentioned the 6 DraftKings points. He had 22 pass attempts and did very little with it. I think he had like 60 yards or 80 yards. So I'm looking to fade Miami's offense. I know Gaskins have been pretty good, but running backs just so loaded with options. So I know Kyler Murray can do well in any matchup with Hopkins and Kirk, but for me, it's Edmonds and the Cardinals defense.
Yeah, I love the Edmonds call. I'm hoping that price scares people away. I mean, I think it's a smash spot here against this defense. So, 6,800. We'll see. Chop, again, you're a college football guy. So do we get some Eno Benjamin here? He looks to be the backup. Some dude named Jonathan Ward. So maybe you can give us some insight there. Another running back here, but all the Edmonds for me here as well. I'm having a tough time. As much as I like Tua down the line, I just don't know how much they're going to let him open it up. Maybe they're going to have to here if Arizona gets out to a lead. So what do you got here, Chop? Dolphins, Cardinals.
Well, I would say for the Miami side, I don't want Tua just yet, like you, for the reasons you guys said. But Myles Gaskins picked up 6 targets in that game, so maybe Tua is going to be doing a lot of checking down here this first year. Who knows? So I think Myles Gaskins in play. It's hard to say who his favorite target is in the receiving core because I think it may be a little skewed with the matchup last week. Somebody was always facing Jalen Ramsey, and he's obviously going to avoid that. So I'm not sure who his favorite target is, but I think you could do worse than putting Devontae Parker in there and hoping for that play from behind, game for Tua, and he's got the arm to do it. So I think it's possible right there. And on the Arizona side, I'm with you guys. Chase Edmonds should be the bell cow here. Not worried about Eno Benjamin, a very, very bland runner. Not going to do much. Jonathan Ward, I think that's like a Central Michigan or Western Michigan or some one of those Michigan teams down there, and I don't think he's very much of a threat. So Chase Edmonds has looked the part, man. Splitting time with Kenyon Drake, he looked better than Kenyon Drake. So I'm all about Chase Edmonds, but if you're also going to give me another week where DeAndre Hopkins is very low owned because he's got a high price tag and a perceived tough matchup, I will gladly jump on some DeAndre Hopkins in GPPs.
All right, Chop, we got Cardinals minus 4.5 here on the spread at home. The total sitting at 47.5.
Oh, man. Okay. At home with a week to prepare here. Give me Arizona.
I'm actually going to take Miami here. They've been competitive. I worry a little bit about Tua, but I think they can hang in this game. So I'll take the Dolphins with the points. Derek, what do you got?
I'm going Arizona.
All right, last game we have Pittsburgh and Chop's Dallas Cowboys. So the news only gets worse for Andy Dalton. I mean, he was questionable, had his bell rung, now lands on the COVID list. So he was questionable. He is officially out. I guess we get another week of Ben DiNucci. It sounds like a damn noodle you'd get at an Italian restaurant, but he's back in our lives here. Zeke, priced down to 6.6K. He's been pretty bad. Pittsburgh side of things, I think the big question here, guys, is the pass catchers. And we saw Claypool, 9 targets. Juju with 8. Ebron scored TD. Deontay Johnson continues to come in and out of the lineup. James Conner, a nice price there. So, Chop, we'll go to you here, buddy. Last game on the slate. Looks like a good spot for Pittsburgh against your Cowboys. But your thoughts here, Steelers and Cowboys.
Yeah, the Cowboys offense is a total avoid for me. It's a tough defense, banged up offensive line here for Dallas. Obviously, the quarterback play, like DiNucci is just, man, I guess maybe he's got some physical skills, but his pocket awareness back there on Sunday night against Philly was terrible. He's got his pocket awareness is like freaking Dean at the swimming pool at the Jaguars game wearing the button, the long sleeve in the summertime, like just no awareness of your surroundings at all, man. So I don't want any part of the Dallas offense. I'm totally out on that. Pittsburgh, like you guys said, or like Beer said, it would have to be who you think is going to be the pass catcher here. Any one of those guys could get it done. It's a great matchup for him. On paper, I think James Conner is going to be a popular option this week, and it looks good on paper. I would not be surprised in the least bit to see Benny Snell come in here and sniper a bunch of work from him because they just don't want to burn Conner into the ground in a cupcake matchup. So that scares me a little, but somebody from Pittsburgh is going to get off. We just got to figure out who it is.
All right, Derek, let's go over to you to wrap it up for Week 9, Steelers and Cowboys.
Yeah, Steelers, you can take your pick in the passing game. I usually like to just go with the cheapest option, especially when that cheapest option is Deontay Johnson. No, he struggled last week, but every other game he's kind of been the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I'm not as worried about Benny Snell as Chop. He didn't even get a snap last week, and he was completely healthy. So, hopefully Connor can get a full workload. If he does, it's a smash spot for him. And I think he was the original smash guy on this podcast that Chop was making fun of me for a couple years ago. So you can run that back. You can play the Steelers defense, although you're going to have to pay up for them. They are 4,900, so they're probably going to need a touchdown in order to get there. I think they've had 65 straight games with a sack, something like that. They need 4 more to break the all-time record. They're certainly going to continue that this week against Danucci, who did not look good. So it's all Pittsburgh for me. I know Zeke's cheap, but there's so many good running backs right in that price range that I don't think I can get there at all.
Yeah, I like Connor here. I agree on Deontay being the cheap guy. It's frustrating. Had him in some lineups last week and going on in and out of lineup all the time, but we know the upside's there. And Chop, great pull on Dean at the pool. I mean, that's years ago, my man. You're digging deep into the memory bank there.
Oh, things like that always float around up the top of my head, man.
How can it not? I love it. All right. Initially, when I was setting things up, we had no line on this game, but did a little refresh here, and I do have a spread. I do not have a total. Would you guys like to try to guess what said spread would be? Chop.
I would think Pittsburgh's minus double digits, so Pittsburgh minus 10.
Derek?
I was going to say, I'll say 9.5.
Pittsburgh minus 13.5 here on the road. So we still do not have a total, so we'll just go with the spread here. So, Derek, we'll go to you for your last pick here. Pittsburgh minus 13.5.
I was going to say, Danucci's bad when they're not setting a line just because Dalton's questionable. But I don't feel great about either one, but I will still take Pittsburgh, I guess.
Yeah, how many points could Andy freaking Dalton possibly be worth to the spread? That's my question. But here it is. I'm going to take Pittsburgh. This Dallas team is just terrible. I think they've quit. So I think Pittsburgh does whatever they want and get an easy win here. Chop, can we goat you into taking your boys here? Almost 2 touchdowns.
That's a big spread. Pittsburgh coming off of a game of the season for them thus far against Baltimore on the road, a win, huge letdown spot for them. So everything kind of points towards maybe Dallas hanging in this spread right here. And yet I think Dallas has officially given up on this year, and I think that they put in everything to that Philly game, and it just didn't work, and I think they're going to be massively let down also. So give me Pittsburgh.
All that analysis, I thought you were going to take Dallas, and then you flip the script.
It's Danucci, man. What I can't. Danucci, like they'll probably get 2 touchdowns on defense here. So there's your spread right there already.
All right. So are we going to count that on our little parlay here?
If you can get it under 14, guys, I'm putting it on my parlay card.
All right. So I have us for Washington minus the 3, Tennessee minus the 5.5, and Pittsburgh minus the 13.5. Did I miss any?
No, I think that was it.
That's it.
That's the parlay card right there. So feel free to put that baby in. I know we had one of our listeners put that 5-teamer in. Was close, so maybe we can hit this one for you guys. But that will wrap us up for Week 9. Guys, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Normally we just wrap it up, final thoughts. But favorite play on the slate and your favorite stack here on the play. I want to kind of add that to the podcast moving forward. So hopefully you got something on the top of your head. If not, just make something up for now. But Derek, what do you got here? Favorite play on the slate and favorite stack on the slate?
All right, favorite play going to be Chase Edmonds. I really like the spot for him against the league's worst run defense at home. And then favorite stack, I'll go Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs. No team has allowed more fantasy points to quarterbacks or wide receivers this season than the Seahawks.
All right, Chop, your turn. Favorite play, favorite stack.
My favorite play, I'm sticking with Derrick Henry. I think they're going to crush on the ground this week to get back on track. Favorite stack, I was actually going to say Diggs and Allen, but got taken. So I'm going to pivot. And if Will Fuller is still a Houston Texan by game time, I'm going Deshaun and Fuller. But that's a very, very easy pivot. If he's gone, go Brandon Cooks. Deshaun Watson to Brandon Cooks or Will Fuller.
I like it. Derek took my favorite play. I love Chase Edmonds. So I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to combine my favorite play, Justin Herbert, the stack, Herbert, Keenan Allen, running it back with Darren Waller on the other side for the Raiders. All right, guys, any other final thoughts here before we get out of here? Derek, let's get over to you.
No final thoughts. Hope you all had a good Halloween, and yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it as always. Thank you for listening. We appreciate the reviews and the kind words. We love doing this. A great initial look at the slate for the three of us. I hope you guys enjoyed it as always. Hope Halloween was good. And Chop, a better holiday coming down the pike here. I do know you're a Thanksgiving guy, so we're not far from that day. So, Chop, we'll go over to you. Final thoughts, buddy.
Oh, it's coming. It's coming. Thanksgiving's coming up. Now we just got to figure out what the plans are for Thanksgiving. Are you willing to let the entire family come into your home this year, given
Hell
everything
to the no.
given
Stay
given everything that's happened in the past several months? Are you willing? So I think our doors are closed this year, but that's a family thing right there. We'll figure that one out in the long run. But I'm looking forward to it, man. Now we got to get out of here. I got to go watch my boy Macman play some COD, some Call of Duty. We got some big money on the line.
Tell you what, I'm going to set the turkey out on the front porch and do like Halloween. Take one, you carve your own turkey, but do not come in my house. No Thanksgiving.
Little Thanksgiving goodie bag. Just bag everything, bag a meal up inside of a bag, staple it together, and put it out there.
Take that shit home and heat it up at your own place. I'll provide the food, but you provide the shelter. So that will do it here for week 9. Guys, again, thank you for listening. We'll be back next week. For Chop, for Notorious, I am Bear saying salut, best of week. Best of luck this week, guys, and we'll see you next week.